I never thought I'd be the man whispering secrets in the dark to my own brother's wife, treating her like she was mine in every way that mattered. It started so quietly I almost convinced myself it was nothing. Every time I close my eyes I feel her nearness again, that soft pull I can't name, and the shame that comes right after. My days with my wife had settled into something safe and still. We spoke in short, polite sentences over breakfast, shared the same bed without really touching anymore. Work swallowed most of my hours, leaving me tired, hollow, moving through our house like a shadow. We lived together with my younger brother and his new bride under one roof. The way families sometimes do, meals around the same table, laughter that never quite reached deep. Everything felt barely past her mid-20s, with those gentle eyes that seemed to carry too much feeling for someone so new to our world. Sleeves rolled up, helping with quiet grace. Her smile was shy when she greeted me, a small nod. Voice barely above a whisper. "Hello, I'm here now." Something in the way she said it made the room feel smaller, warmer. I told myself it was just politeness, the newness of another person sharing our space. But when she passed me the bowl of rice, her fingers brushed mine for half a second, and I felt it like a spark that shouldn't have been there. I pulled back too quickly. She blushed, looked down, and kept moving as if nothing had happened. That night I lay awake longer than usual. My wife's breathing was steady beside me, deep in sleep. I kept seeing her face, the way her hair fell across her cheek while she worked. She was my brother's wife. This was wrong even to think about. I turned over, tried to push the thought away, but the house felt different now, charged with something I couldn't name. The next few days blurred into small, careful moments. I'd catch myself watching her from across the room when she helped clear the table. She moved so softly, like she was afraid of taking up too much space. Once, when my brother was out late, she struggled with a heavy bag of groceries at the door. I stepped in without thinking, took it from her hands. Our arms brushed as I lifted it, and I felt the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric of her sleeve. "Thank you," she murmured, eyes lifting to mine for just a breath too long. I nodded, voice rough, and carried it inside. The air between us seemed thicker after that, like we were both pretending the contact hadn't lingered. Another evening, the hallway was narrow when we passed each other. She was carrying folded laundry, I was coming from the study. Our shoulders touched lightly. I smelled jasmine, faint and sweet, rising from her hair. She froze for a second, whispered sorry, but neither of us stepped aside right away. Her breath trembled just a little. Mine did too. I could feel the heat of her body so close, inches away, and something inside me tightened with a hunger I had no right to feel. I forced myself to move first. She slipped past, but the scent stayed with me, clinging to my shirt like a secret I didn't want to wash away. I told myself it was nothing, just family closeness, just helpfulness, but at night the thoughts came anyway. Shess, his wife. You have your own. This craving is dangerous. Yet every time I heard her soft laugh from the kitchen or saw her gentle eyes glance my way, the pull grew stronger, like gravity I couldn't fight. I hated how much I waited for those tiny moments when our paths crossed, how my heart beat faster when she said my name. One quiet afternoon, the house felt emptier than usual. My wife was at work, my brother away on errands. She asked me softly if I could reach something high in the cupboard for her. I stood behind her, stretching up. Her back was so close to my chest I could feel the faint warmth radiating through her clothes. When I handed her the jar, our fingers met again. This time neither of us pulled away immediately. Her eyes lifted, wide and uncertain, lips parted just slightly. The jasmine scent wrapped around me, and for one endless second everything else disappeared. I wanted to lean in. I wanted to say her name like it belonged only to me. But I didn't. I stepped back, heart hammering, murmuring something about needing to check my emails. She nodded quickly, cheeks flushed, and turned away. Yet the almost moment stayed with me, burning. I couldn't stop thinking about how close we had been, how easy it would have been to close that last inch. The shame washed over me in waves, but underneath it the ache only deepened. She was forbidden. She was family, and still, in the quiet corners of my mind, I kept treating her like something precious that was already mine. like my secret wife, waiting in the spaces between what we were allowed to be. And then, the next morning, she looked at me across the breakfast table with those gentle eyes and whispered my name in a way that made the whole room tilt. The days that followed carried a quiet rhythm I couldn't ignore. I started offering to help with little things when my brother was away on calls or errands. A heavy bag of groceries at the door, a leaking tap in her small bathroom that she mentioned once in passing. Each time she'd thank me in that soft, hesitant voice, eyes dropping to the floor like she was afraid the words might linger too long between us. Something inside me stirred every time. Not loud, just a slow, warm pull I tried to name as kindness. One evening the kitchen felt too small. She was reaching for a jar on the high shelf, standing on her toes, fingers brushing empty air. I stepped behind her without a word, arms stretching past her shoulder, our bodies brushed. Her back grazed my chest for half a second. Her hair, so soft, tickled my forearm. The faint scent of jasmine rose from her skin, warm and sweet, wrapping around me like invisible threads. I froze there, jar in hand, heart suddenly loud in my ears. She turned her head slightly. Her cheek was inches from mine. A blush crept up her neck. She whispered, breath trembling, but neither of us moved away right away. The heat of her body lingered against me, and for that endless moment the kitchen disappeared. Only the space between us existed. Only the almost. I handed her the jar. Our fingers touched. Warm, lingering, she looked up at me, eyes widened, uncertain, lips parted just enough to make my throat tighten. I wanted to say her name like it was only for me. Instead I stepped back, murmuring something useless about dinner. She nodded quickly, cheeks flushed deeper, and turned to the counter. Yet the jasmine stayed with me, clinging to my shirt, haunting the air long after she left the room. That night I lay awake beside my sleeping wife. The ceiling fan turned slowly above us. My mind wouldn't quiet. Shess, my brother's wife, married. I have responsibilities, a life built carefully. This is wrong, dangerous. One innocent touch shouldn't feel like drowning, but God, the way her eyes lifted to mine on that shelf, the way her breath caught. No, stop. I turned onto my side, trying to push the thoughts away. They only came back stronger, like gravity pulling me toward something I had no right to want. The next afternoon the house was quiet again. My wife at her shift. My brother out handling some family matter. She asked me softly if I could fix the loose handle on her window. I went in, tools in hand, telling myself it was nothing, just helping family. She stood by the door watching me work, arms crossed lightly over her chest. Every small movement she made sent that jasmine scent drifting toward me. I focused on the screws, but my hands felt unsteady. When I finished and turned, she was closer than I expected. Our eyes met. The air thickened, heavy with words neither of us dared speak. "Thank you," she said again, voice barely above a whisper. It carried that same sweet hesitation. I nodded, throat dry. For a second I imagined treating her differently, like she was mine to protect, to care for in the quiet spaces where no one else saw. Like a wife who waited only for me, the thought sent heat rushing through me, shameful and unstoppable. I forced a smile and left the room before the ache could pull me any closer. Later that evening, while passing in the narrow hallway, our shoulders touched again. She was carrying fresh towels. I smelled jasmine mixed with the clean scent of laundry. Her breath hitched softly. We both paused, bodies so close I could feel the warmth radiating from her. An inch, maybe less. I wanted to reach out to steady her, to feel that softness under my palm. Instead I murmured an apology and stepped aside first. She slipped past, but the contact stayed burned into my skin. At night, the war inside me grew louder. This craving is wrong. She belongs to him. I belong to someone else. We're just family, yet every time I heard her soft footsteps or caught her gentle glance across the table, the hunger deepened. I hated how much I looked forward to those small moments. How my pulse quickened when she said my name like it was a secret. I told myself I was only being helpful, the good brother-in-law, but in the dark, lying there with my wife breathing evenly beside me, I kept imagining her eyes on me, her warmth so close, and the line between right and wrong blurred until I couldn't see it anymore. The next morning she looked at me across the breakfast table with those gentle eyes, and something in her quiet smile made the whole room tilt again. I knew then the almost moments were no longer enough. The pull was becoming impossible to ignore. The weeks that followed wrapped around us like humid air before a storm. Her fingers brushing mine when she passed me a cup of warm tea, lingering just a second too long, the heat from her skin seeping through the porcelain and straight into my blood. I told myself it was nothing, an accident. Family helping family, but that warmth stayed with me for hours, a secret pulse under my own skin. In the narrow hallway one evening, we bumped shoulders while she carried folded clothes, her body so close I could feel the soft give of her through thin fabric, the faint jasmine rising like invisible threads pulling me nearer. She didn't step away immediately. Neither did I. Our breaths mixed in the small space, shallow and uneven, and for one suspended heartbeat I imagined and what it would be like if I simply reached out and drew her against me, treating her the way a husband should, gently, completely. The thought made my chest tighten with shame and something far hungrier. I murmured an excuse about needing to check the lights and slipped past, heart hammering like it almost fallen from a great height. Her scent became my private torment. Every time it drifted toward me, soft, sweet, clinging to the air. After she left a room, I was yanked back to that first accidental touch. The way her eyes had fluttered, I caught myself inhaling deeper when she was near, ashamed of how much I craved that single note of jasmine mixed with the warmth of her clothes. It felt like drowning in something beautiful I had no right to taste. Then came that rainy afternoon when the house stood empty, rain drumming against the windows like impatient fingers. She asked me quietly to help move a heavy box in her room, voice soft with that familiar hesitation. I followed her inside, telling myself it was innocent. Just lifting something for family. The room felt smaller with the storm outside, air thick and charged. We stood close over the box, shoulders nearly touching, and when our eyes locked, the hesitation cracked open like lightning. I pulled her into me before reason could catch up. Our lips met, deep and trembling, the sweetness of her flooding every sense while her body pressed against mine, soft and shaking with the same storm I felt inside. In that moment, everything shifted. She became mine in the only way that mattered. Not on paper, not in front of anyone, but in the secret space where no one else existed. The rain kept falling, covering the sound of our quickened breaths, and I held her like she was the only real thing in my world. After that, the pull turned into something we couldn't fight anymore. We stole moments wherever the house allowed, quick, breathless kisses in the kitchen when everyone else slept, her back against the counter, my hands framing her face like she was fragile and precious. Quiet nights in her room where I treated her like my real wife, holding her close, moving with slow reverence, whispering things I never dared say aloud to anyone else, promises that felt sacred even as guilt gnawed at the edges. She started calling me husband in those private hours, her voice trembling with love and fear, the words wrapping around me like warm silk. Each time I left her room before dawn, I carried the ache of wanting more, the shame of what I was becoming. My wife slept peacefully down the hall, trusting, unaware. My brother trusted me too, yet every stolen night the hunger only grew. The way her jasmine scent lingered on my collar felt like evidence I both feared and treasured. I knew we were playing with fire that could burn everything down. But when she looked at me with those eyes full of surrender, calling me husband again, the world outside her door stopped mattering. One evening as I held her afterward, her head resting against my chest, listening to the rain that had returned, she whispered my name like a prayer and a warning all at once. Her fingers traced slow circles on my skin, and I felt the tremble in them. The same trembling that lived in me now, constant and deepening. How much longer could we keep this hidden before someone noticed the way we looked at each other across the table, the way the air changed whenever we were in the same room? The thought sent a fresh wave of heat and dread through me, but I only pulled her closer, burying my face in her hair, breathing in the jasmine that now felt like home and ruin at the same time. He started sharing fragments of his loneliness too, late one night when the house was quiet except for the creak of floorboards. She told me how my brother had grown distant, how his touches felt like obligations now, how she sometimes lay awake wondering if she had become invisible in her own marriage. Her voice cracked on the word unseen, and something in me broke open, because I knew that ached too well. the way my wife's eyes passed over me like I was furniture. We sat on the edge of her bed, knees almost brushing, and for the first time we let the words spill without shame. Laughter came first, soft and surprised, then tears that tasted like relief. We whispered what if futures that could never exist, quiet mornings without sneaking, hands held in daylight, a life where I could call her mine without whispering. On her pillow the jasmine scent lingered like a promise we both clung to, our secret code when eyes met across the dinner table. But small cracks began to show, a delicate tearing left on my nightstand one hurried morning. A late-night text from her that lit up my screen just as my wife turned over in sleep. Each time my heart slammed against my ribs. Half thrill, half terror, the gravity pulling harder even as the ground beneath us started to crumble. Then came the night that shattered everything. My brother returned home hours earlier than planned, keys turning softly in the lock while rain hissed against the windows. From the hallway I heard it. Her soft, breathless sound floating through the thin wall, my name slipping from her lips like a confession instead of his. The door flew open before I could move. There we were, tangled in the sheets she had chosen for their room, her fingers still curled against my chest, the delicate necklace I had secretly fastened around her throat catching the faint light, his face drained of color. The shock in his eyes hit me harder than any blow. Raw betrayal mixed with disbelief, as if the world he thought he knew had just been ripped away. She gasped, clutching the sheet, her body still warm from me. Time froze in that awful second, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and guilt. No words could fix what his stare had already broken. I saw the exact moment his trust in both of us turned to ash. In the days that followed, the silence was worse than shouting. My marriage dissolved in quiet, poisonous conversations that left my wife's eyes hollow. My brother cut me off completely, his last look a mixture of disgust and grief that still haunts me. She packed her things with trembling hands, tears sliding down her cheeks as she stood in the doorway one final time. "I can't live with this guilt anymore," she whispered, voice barely holding together. "I loved the way you made me feel seen, but it cost too much." Then she was gone, leaving only the faint trace of jasmine on the air like a ghost that refuses to fade. I sit here alone now, nights stretching empty. I sit here alone now, nights stretching empty, still waking to the phantom warmth of her beside me. The house feels too large, too quiet, every corner echoing with what we stole and lost. Was it worth destroying to families for those stolen hours when I treated her like my wife in the dark? Or am I simply a selfish man who chased a hunger that was never meant to be satisfied? The ache hasn't left. It has only changed shape, sharper now, laced with regret that tastes like jasmine and ruin. Tell me honestly, what would you have done in my place? Would you have stopped when the first would have slipped out, or would the pull have dragged you under the same way it did me, leaving nothing but this endless, whispering emptiness?